Hey, 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 you are now listening or watching the Halos in the Infield podcast, sponsored in part by Noble L Works over on 1621 South Sinclair, where you can get discounts by just mentioning HITI, Halos in the Infield, drink discounts on us, baby. And also by 714 tickets, 714 tickets. The price you see is the price you get, and you also get 10% additionally off in the Apply Now code once you order your tickets just by mentioning HITI, Halos in the Infield. Now enjoy the show.
In the land without shores, I play my part with the Halos in the infield. I'll make my mark. I'm the Lone Star Halo, shining bright tonight. In a sea of rangers, I'll stand and fight with the Halos in the outfield under stadium lights. From Texas to Anaheim, we'll soar to new heights. We'll soar to new heights.
Hey, welcome in everybody to the Halos in the Infield podcast on the weekly with your host Todd Fox with the Lone Star Halo. Fernando, say hi.
Hi. Todd gave me permission to talk.
Yeah, sorry. Stop talking now. No, we're gonna talk on this episode about a few things. Is mainly the catching you guys up because we haven't been on in a couple shows. It's been a busy off season for me, Fernando as well, but he's made a couple shows. I have not, so I'm trying to make up for that. We're going to talk about Chase Darno, and we're going to talk about give my thoughts on Soler and also Newman, who was signed, and Hendricks. So, and we'll talk about probably some off season stuff and maybe sprinkle some other baseball related news to the Angels and expectations. So, Fernando, take it away, my friend.
So I'll let we'll kind of walk anybody through who maybe they've been focused on football, and maybe they just haven't kept up with the Angels, and we'll keep that portion quick so Todd can also respond since him and I haven't been able to touch base on air about some of the moves that have already been made, and then of course we will talk about the most recent moves, which is Travis d'Arnaud and Kevin Newman. So let's start off with Jorge Soler. So that was the first move immediately out the gate for the Angels. First day after the World Series, they went ahead and traded for Jorge Soler of the Atlanta Braves in exchange for Griffin Canning. Todd, what was your immediate reaction?
Reaction. Let me give you that. No, I actually liked it because Griffin Canning's fastball, you've touched on it, Rob's touched on it. Has declined over the last 3 to 4 years. He's been in and out of the IR, or IL, I should say. And he's just been, one of these guys where he's very frustrating. He'll come out there and give you 6 innings, 4 hits, 1 run. And then the next night he'll come out 6 runs, 8 hits, and 2 walks, and he's gone in the 3rd inning. So, he's never been quite consistent. We've always said he has a ton of upside, but that's kind of gone downhill the last couple of years. So the fact that they were able to make this trade, Fernando, for a guy who I think pressed a lot in the early season of 2024, trying to, live up to that contract, although it wasn't huge, but still one of the biggest of his career. I think playing with the Giants under the microscope, I think he pressed. That's not a hitter's ballpark. And once he went back to the National League, he kind of got his bearings. He went from a guy who was hitting 210 at the time around the Mendoza line, not too many home runs, not too many RBIs, to a guy who finished with, I believe, 241 and a solid year. He had a really good second half. So optimism on him, but in other words, I love the trade.
I already gave my opinion on it, but for anybody who might have missed it, I liked the trade. I thought it made the Angels better. So far, the trend this offseason has been the team is actually taking a step forward. A lot of these movies that we're going to mention are, you got a lot of people who are like, oh, just another Angels move. But the problem with the last couple of seasons, even dating back to when the Angels were trying to contend, the Angels didn't become a team. They were getting guys from free agency and hoping they were going to make them better. But that wasn't making the bottom any better. This is a team game, right? This isn't basketball. And the reason why I say that, A, because you like to harp on basketball, but B, in basketball, you can sign a guy like LeBron James, have nobody else on your team, and still make the NBA Finals, right?
Mhm.
That's kind of what I know. That's one of the things you don't like about basketball. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Some teams will make one signing, and all of a sudden, that makes all the difference. And it's really like, really, is it really a team game if one guy can make that big of an impact? But with baseball, you need to be well-rounded. This Angels team has been very top-heavy, right? Stars and scrubs. Stars, and then, the guys get hurt. Next thing you know, you're sending the freshman baseball team out there, Jose
Yeah.
Lopez. So Jorge Soler made the team better, but yeah, I love the move. So they get rid of Griffin Canning, and they replace him with Kyle Hendricks, who's essentially an older Griffin Canning. Difference is he's won a World Series, and it was a $2.5 million deal, which is about half of what Griffin Canning was expected to get. What was your impression on that signing?
I liked it only for the reasons that Perry said, that they discovered watching the tape on him. So it means already right there, I like the fact that they're scouting, that they're proving that they can scout, as a lot of us have wondered if they still remember how to scout. But my
Or if
point
they know how to actually look at footage.
Yes, if they can read the footage, but apparently they did, and apparently they are convinced and trying to convince us that 5.92 ERA that he sported last year was an aberration. If you look through his career numbers, I believe, are he's had some years where he's had 2 ERAs. For the most part, he's been in the threes. But they found a flaw in how and I guess Enright and crew with that pitching staff of scientists they have down there are going to fix whatever ails him. And they believe he could be one of these guys that could be at the back end of the rotation with about a 4 ERA or less and can provide some stability to the young guys who are going to have up there this year. So I like the move if they are right. If they are right, this is a good, solid move. Is it a playoff needle mover? No. But I think outside of Soler, I think these moves are more to shore up for when the injuries come, because God knows, they're going to come.
Yeah, and for anybody who was saying like, "Oh, just another Angels move," when they signed Kyle Hendricks, they are right. It is a very Angels move, but the difference here is other guys were signed to be the guy. Matt Harvey was supposed to be the Dark Knight when he came here and said he was doing cocaine in the bathroom. Right? Isn't that what happened? I
Yeah.
believe that was a thing.
Yeah, he had the powdered nose for sure.
Yeah, and then Trevor Cahill was supposed to be the Messiah. Julio Teheran was supposed to be the next big thing, right? Hey, that was the opening day starter for the Braves forever, and then he came over here and didn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Point is, those guys were supposed to be front end of the rotation type guys for us. Lord Bundy was supposed to be that kind of, trade that was supposed to really move the needle for the Angels, give him an ace. The difference is Kyle Hendricks is not that. He's supposed to be a number 5 guy. And worst comes to worst, this is a $2.5 million contract for 1 year. This, in my opinion, truly is a low-risk, high-reward type signing. When we signed Noah Syndergaard to a $20 million contract, there was more writing on it, right? We were supposed to make the playoffs last year. That was one of the most expensive free agent deals per year the Angels ever made on a pitcher. And this isn't that. It's $2.5 million prove-it deal for Kyle Hendricks to prove post-surgery that he still has something in the tank. And he ended up the year pretty strong with the Cubs. So, once again, I think this is a move that makes the Angels better, because at least the young pitchers now have that guy who is capable of being a good leader, who wants to be a leader, and wants to be in Anaheim.
Mm-hmm.
Those check off a lot of boxes that haven't been checked off here in quite a while. So another box that a lot of people thought had been needing to be checked for a while, and I know you've said ad nauseum needed to be done, was the Angels getting a legitimate catcher to back up Logan O'Hoppe.
Mm-hmm.
Logan O'Hoppe took more than 80% of the starting catching starts. And for a catcher, that's a lot. Yes, he's young, but look what happened to Buster Posey. He was catching like crazy. with San Francisco. Eventually, the knees caught up with him, and he had to start playing first base a little bit. So, in an attempt to maybe help a little bit and get Logan O'Hoppe a legitimate mentor, they got Travis d'Arnaud, World Series winner with Atlanta. 2 years, $12 million. How are you feeling about that?
I like it because when he plays, what you're getting. He may have a night where he strikes out a couple times, but he'll work a walk. He's the type of prototypical hitter that you want in the lineup that we've been screaming for. We want that kind of a veteran approach where it's not all or nothing all the time. He'll give you a hit. He'll give you a walk. He'll get on base. He'll sacrifice. And that's the type of hitter that you're going to want. Now, he's not going to put up O'Hoppe numbers by no means, but if he can give you about 10 home runs, 50 RBIs, we'll take that in a heartbeat. And I think our concern too is the fact that I don't know if this administration thought that, Thaiss was just not up to playing twice or three times a week or giving him a spell. A lot of Angel fans were like, look, this guy can hit the ball. And at times when he's out there can go on a little bit of run. And we were just perplexed the fact that, like you said, O'Hoppe took so many, nights of catching where we were even saying, hey, man, it'd be nice to put O'Hoppe in that DH role. I mean, there's no Trout, there's no Ohtani. And there's no Rendon. So, I mean, you could easily play O'Hoppe at DH and have Thaiss catch, but they must not like his defense. It was evident today he was DFA'd, which I think you could have got something for him. I hope he returns to the organization. That way, if you're going to flip him, you could flip him later, or maybe he can come up for depth. But I thought for the few players that actually, when you needed a sacrifice, could come through and give you a sacrifice pinch hit, I think Thaiss was really good. For d'Arnaud, I think it's a really good, like you said, mentorship, and it's going to be stability to that lineup, and what you're getting with him, basically.
Yeah. Before we go into d'Arnaud, we'll talk a little bit about Matt Thaiss. Technically, the Angels still have a little bit of time to decide if they're going to trade him or just put him on outright waivers. Depending on when he was DFA'd, I believe it was actually today. I believe they now have 10 days to decide if they're going to put him on outright waivers or trade him. Now, here's the thing. I don't know if anybody will bite on him being traded because now he's been put on, he could potentially be put on waivers. But if he does get put on outright waivers, I think somebody's going to pick him up. Somebody's going to take a chance on him because Matt Thaiss has shown at times that he is capable of being a major league hitter.
Correct.
He is very streaky. He very much has, one particular kind of swing. He's an all or nothing type guy. But in the right hands, I think Matt Thaiss could at least be a serviceable backup major league catcher.
I do too. I think what's overlooked a lot by Angels brass is the fact that he takes a lot of pitches. He does.
His on-base percentage was .323, which doesn't sound very good, but keep in mind, this guy batted .204 last year.
Yeah.
So that means he's significantly better with his eye than he is, deciding what to swing on, clearly.
Correct. Which in my mind, like you said, I agree. I think he can easily take that next step and get better under better tutelage.
Yeah, and the other thing to keep in mind, this guy hasn't had a ton of time at the major leagues. And before you guys are like, "Oh, Fernando, you're an idiot." Yes, he has. We see this guy all the time. He only has 663 at bats as a major leaguer. There's some guys that almost get that in a season.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to say that only equivalates to just over a season full of baseball.
Yeah, I mean, most guys, if they're starting every day, are in the 500s?
Correct.
550s more like. So, this guy has about a year of major league experience. He's only played 245 career games at the major league level.
Yeah, it's not a lot.
No, and last year's stats, he was only worth 0.6 WAR, which, hey, at least it was a positive.
Yeah.
157 at bats, 32 hits, 2 home runs, and a 204 batting average. 16 RBIs.
But if you look at earlier in the season when he did get the at-bats, I don't think his average was that bad. I can't say specifically, but it wasn't that bad. I think when Ron went away from him completely, I mean, you would go almost 2 weeks without seeing Thaiss on the field. I mean, the only time you would see him on the field is if Ohapi just ended the inning or was on base and Thaiss had to go out there to warm up the pitcher in between innings. I swear to God. I mean, you didn't see this guy for 2 weeks and all of a sudden you see him and you're like, oh yeah, Thaiss is still up here.
Yeah, he wasn't even like the designated vibes guy. Like at least Brett Phillips was like there for the vibes and people knew that. You know what I mean? Matt Thaiss wasn't even that. You know, Thaiss was just sitting there like, Phil Neville's not here anymore. Brad Osmus, where are you?
Joe, I want to play.
Yeah, exactly. I just want to play ball, man. Yeah, I want to play pickleball, man, or whatever this is. Whatever we're playing here, guys.
Hey, I can play Pepper during the innings, right? Between innings? Pepper? Yeah.
Hey, what's your name? Ron. Oh, that's a cool name, dude. When I was a good boy, Phil Nevin used to let me play pickle in between innings so I can get some running in. Can I do that? Like, you know, during the 4th inning stretch? It's the 7th inning stretch. Whatever, dude.
He's like, can I race the kid to steal the third base? I bet you I could beat him.
Yeah, right. They won't have to cheat for me.
I could easily make it there in 30 seconds.
Yeah. He gets gassed halfway. I can't do it anymore.
He trips the kid as the kid's going to beat him.
Yeah, right. So, yeah, Matt Thaiss was DFA. That was one of the last moves there. But Travis d'Arnaud, 2 years, $12 million. We now have a legitimate backup catcher. He was worth 1.4 wins above replacement last year, 307 at bats, 15 home runs. His batting average was a little low, 238. His on-base percentage was 302. Now, Travis d'Arnaud is somebody who is hailed for his defense. Yeah. He has one of the best pop times in baseball. At least he did. His pop time, even though he's what? I don't have his age.
36.
What? 35, sir.
Oh, he's going to be 36.
He is, yeah. He's going to be 36 by the time spring training rolls around. He has one of the better pop times, and it's better than Logan Ohapi. So perhaps Logan really can learn something from Travis d'Arnaud. This guy is very, very well regarded as a field general out there. He commands the pitching staff. There's certain pitchers that just love working with him, including Max Fried, who is a free agent. I know a lot of people want him. I would love Max Fried to come here. But overall, this was a great signing. Once again, I think this helps the Angels become a more complete team.
Yeah, he'll be able to read base runners. Obviously, he'll be able to adjust the defense if the coaches aren't like telling him what to do. I mean, some catchers are able to go out there and be like, okay, you know, I know the scouting reports. We heard it from Ohapi, what he does. So, you know, yeah, you're right. It's just going to get Ohapi better as a field captain himself. And also like provide a little pop in the lineup. It'll help if they add more pieces. But definitely this is a good depth move. I can't knock it.
Yeah. Once again, I think the Angels move the needle a little bit because if, you know, God forbid something happens to Logan Ohapi, he does get injured. You now have a legitimate backup catcher. And
if
then go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No. I was going to say, and then, you know, maybe you can bring back a guy like a Chad Wallach as your third option, which, I mean, you know, he was kind of a third option already, but, you know, that's more of your, you know, things are going wrong type thing.
He should wear a number 3 because that's what he's always been. But I'll tell you this right now. If there's a few more of these depth moves, I like it because the more depth you can get, the better. I am all for it. And if they got to make certain tough decisions, like with Thaiss to DFA certain players because they don't have any options, I'm all for that too. That's the risk of playing the game. But if you're able to say, okay, well, this guy has a track record of being healthy, whereas our guys don't, then you got to flip that switch at a point. I think that's what they did with Griffin. And I think that's what they did here with Thaiss. Not that he gets injured, but they're just not trustworthy of him right now. So there's moves to be made. And obviously we want some big fishes, like you said, Fried or others to come here too. If those are the fill-ins, then we already know. I mean, we're fooling ourselves if we thought this team was going to rebuild. So, you know, and right now our fear.
Well, how dare they do the right thing?
Yeah, our fearless Fuhrer in charge over there, Artie Moreno. He announced to the Third Reich that we're all in. We're gonna spend money, prepare for big spending. So these are the first few moves. It's very, very early. Usually teams don't make moves like this, whether big or small. I mean, you always get the rumblings around here, and it starts to get a little crazy in December, January is when it takes off. But we'll see, man. I mean, I'm not gonna sit there and tell you I'm optimistic because I'm not. I've been jaded the last few years, but I will say that I'll believe it when I see it. And if it does happen this year, this would be a show to look back on and say, hey, this is where it started. They got a few pieces together and they started to put a game plan together, which they may already have a game plan. Who knows? Because they don't tell us.
One move that we haven't got to mention, you mentioned at the top of the show, but for anybody forgot, Kevin Newman signed a 1-year deal with the Angels worth $2.5 million, and he has a club option for 2026. Now, for anybody who might not know who Kevin Newman is, because I saw people like Randy, I don't want to call it, Unfiltered Sports Network, check out their football show. But he was like almost like mocking the trade or the move, the free agent signing. And I was like, you know what? No, this is a good move. Now, for anyone who might not know, Kevin Newman was drafted in the first round by the Pittsburgh Pirates in 2015. Last year with, I believe, Arizona, he had 288 at-bats. He got 80 hits, 3 home runs, 28 RBIs, 8 stolen bases. And here's where it gets interesting. 278 batting average with a 311 on base percentage. Now, this is a guy who's a career 262 hitter. And you know what that tells me? If his career batting average is 262, he batted 278 last year. That means he's consistent, right? He's somewhere in that zone, which is fine because this guy is your backup. I told you, or maybe I told Rob, or I don't know, you and I talk occasionally on the phone. I say occasionally, it's probably like 2 or 3 times a week. I told you that the Angels need to get another Luis Rengifo. And you agreed with me. This is your second Luis Rengifo, which is good.
Yeah, because I mean, I totally agree because nobody's counting 6. Nobody's counting 6. I mean,
if you get 20 games from him, consider it a blessing.
Yeah, which I don't intend to get that. I don't care to get that. I think right now, the way you got to look at it is if that guy doesn't even exist. And I know it looks, he exists on the payroll, he exists in the team photos, but you got to think that he's like that picture that Marty McFly had where he's starting to disappear. Hopefully, his brother disappears from the picture. You hope that's number 6 at some point, and that he doesn't return. But I think what you're talking about is good for the infield in general, because this guy can play multiple positions, but obviously he could fill in there at third. If we could make the decision tomorrow or even yesterday, I think me and you are on par with saying, hey, man, Rengifo should be your starting third baseman to start the year. If you don't make a splash to get somebody else, your infield should consist of, maybe more at second. You got Rengifo, Neto, and Shawnoel. That's ideal for right now.
Yeah.
But then you got Newman as a backup, which is very good. So
and for anybody wondering, he plays first, second, third, short, played left field last year, and he DH'd.
Yeah, this guy's a jack of all trades. He's got a good arm. And the thing I like about him the most is where I think he can improve, but he makes the best out of it because, at least like you said, his batting average isn't down. He's a tall dude, which means he has a bigger strike zone, but he makes the best out of the strike zone. So if he becomes a little bit more patient, gets a better eye, he could raise that on base percentage for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I like this move. This guy's been around the block. He's been in Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Arizona, and now he gets to come to Anaheim. Now, I'm definitely noticing a trend. There's been a lot of Southern California guys coming back home, if you will. Kyle Hendricks is a local guy. Travis d'Arnaud's fairly local. He's a SoCal kid. And Kevin Newman's out of Poway. So, not exactly local, but close enough, right? I mean, Poway's like an hour and 10 minutes away from Anaheim, no traffic.
There's something
maybe like an
there's
hour and a half.
something about putting yourself back where your family's at, to where you can have access to see them and they could see you. So
Yeah, yeah,
there,
absolutely.
there's a lot of players who, maybe live in Michigan but play in LA or play in San Francisco and don't get to see their families, and they don't realize that they're gone 9 months of the year. So it can be tough on them. So if you have that in your backyard, maybe Artie's playing on that, and hopefully so, because there are, if you look up and down the free agent market, well, besides your international players, there's a ton of guys who are good to average that came from the SoCal area.
Yeah, and you know what? These are very good moves because once again, they help make the team better. You can't always just make the big signing and it work out. We as Angels fans know that. It's football season. I don't want to pick on Randy, but I mean, look at the Jets, right?
Mhm.
The Jets made a lot of big trades, big moves, and on paper, they looked great, just like the Angels have many, many, many times. And it just doesn't always work out.
And I could throw it over to two other teams, Fernando, like that exactly what you're talking about, where yes, they've used their homegrown talent, they've got better scouting, both these teams. So I'm not going to put the Angels up there, but I will say this is that they had a blueprint, being the Tigers and the Royals, and they had a couple veterans in place on both teams, and decided to build around those veterans. The rookies came through, and like you said, they made these depth moves where you're like, oh, they signed this dude or they signed that dude, and you don't think much of it in the offseason, but when it came down to it, those moves helped the team, and they got the right kind of vibe, the right kind of cohesiveness. And it's not that all these players had career years. You could look up and down the Tigers lineup. It wasn't really all that spectacular. A lot of guys are batting only 230, 240. The thing is, they had tremendous pitching. And then the Royals too. I mean, their pitching wasn't excellent, but they had a lot of young guys who kept it together because they have a great catcher. And then you look up and down that lineup, it was depth and it was homegrown, and it all worked together, and both teams made the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. A good general manager knows what they're trying to do. Right now, these are good moves. Why? Because it doesn't take playing time, in theory, away from Neto. It doesn't take playing time away from, Ohapi, Shanuel, Rengifo, in theory. These guys who could potentially be part of the puzzle long term. We know that 3 out of those guys are. Christian Moore, same thing. We don't exactly know what he's going to be this year. In my opinion, the Angels still need to go out there and get a second baseman for 1 year with maybe like a second-year option, because I really, really, really want Christian Moore to marinate at least one full season. Give him this full year. I don't care if the guy's batting 800 in the minors. Just give him 1 year in there. You know what I mean? To really come up and be ready.
Yeah.
Because we're not expecting this team to contend this year. You said it perfectly. Could they, in theory? Sure. That's the beauty in baseball. Anybody could.
Mm-hmm.
But these are very Royals 2023 and Tigers 2023 moves. Actually, the Tigers were more surprising because they traded their best pitcher. Well, I mean, Tarek Skubal's their best pitcher. Second best pitcher, Jack Flaherty, to the Dodgers. And they still made the playoffs. Could you imagine if the Tigers might have kept Flaherty? They might have actually gotten past the Yankees.
Yeah, and Flaherty was a move that a lot of Dodger fans didn't like because he didn't pitch all that great until late September into the playoffs. And he wound up being a rock for them.
Yeah, and now Dodger fans don't want him to go.
Yeah. Now they're like, hey, stay. But no, I think there is something to that, and we got to remember too, Neto may miss a couple weeks, maybe a month of the season if things don't go right. He may be there for the start. So I'm not going to be happy if they don't sign a second baseman, like you said, to protect more, at least if you're going to give him the key, not the keys to the car, but give him a shot to start the year. And then you'd need this Newman guy to be probably your starting shortstop or backup if they expect number 6 to play a couple weeks. So I think, because that just reminded me, that might lock number 6 into at least 2 to 3 weeks of play, because Neto may miss,
Maybe, yeah. And it's funny because I remember Rendon was really good in spring training. Remember, to start the year, he was looking really good. If memory serves correctly, was it the first game this spring training he hit a home run? And everyone was like, I don't know, guys, maybe.
Yeah, that was his only home run for the entire season. So, and that one didn't even count.
I thought he
So,
hit like 6 or so in spring training.
nah, I think he only hit the one because he played sparingly. Like he was one of those guys that would play like 3 innings, like Pujols, and then you'd see him with his golf bag walking out of the stadium. So, I,
That's
I,
fair.
I
See,
just,
the difference is Pools earned it. You know what I mean? In his
yeah,
career.
yeah. I think we Angel fans have turned the page on that one, and through podcasts like this one, and like your points you first started bringing up 4 years ago, like, hey, we need to appreciate Pujols a little bit because at least he played, at least he put up numbers. They weren't St. Louis numbers,
No.
but he put up good enough numbers to be in that upper echelon. That's more than what we could say about number 6. Number 6 hasn't even put up like backup numbers. You know, like Thaiss outdid him this year. The very guy we DFA'd. And I think this is the first season, Fernando, that the organization has woken up and they're like, okay, enough of the bullshit. You know, we're tired of dealing with this guy. And they're like, you're gonna have to earn your spot. You're nobody special. Like they just kept saying, okay, you got third base, you got third base, you got third. It's not like we had stars ready to take it. It's just that they were just like, no backup plan. This year's different. This year, finally, they're over it. You know?
Yeah, which is good. Which is good. I still think you need to go out there and maybe make like one more like minor league signing, you know, to back up Newman. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Get a minor league, you know, like this is where I would get a guy like people are going to roll their eyes at, like a Tyler Wade. You know, when we got Tyler Wade the first time, he was supposed to be our starting shortstop. You know what I mean? He's not that here. He's not even the backup shortstop. He's the backup's backup. You know what I mean?
Oh,
so
yeah,
now you can make those minor league signings and get guys like that. You know, maybe you make a minor league signing for a guy like Jose Iglesias if he doesn't get a contract. You know, the new Latin pop star from the Mets that we remember was Shohei Ohtani's best friend.
We'll see. We'll want Adames and we'll get Iglesias.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see. These, in my opinion, so far, very good moves. The offseason is still early. I guess in a vacuum right now, nobody else has really made moves. So by far, the Angels right now are having the best offseason Major League Baseball, just by default. Yeah. But obviously, at some point, you know, everyone else is going to start making moves. But this is good. I like the Angels making these signings early. You know, maybe they can convince a guy like Max Fried to sign early or somebody else. You know, Ha-Sung Kim or someone like that who can play second base. Probably isn't going to sign early because that's a Scott Boras client.
I love that move, but maybe Boras decides, hey, I'm not going to hold these guys out or push them on teams late, or be so up, you know, not willing to take negotiations early. But real quick, I got to ask you a question because I don't know if you saw this in the news today. Reportedly, they're talking about Soto getting an offer anywhere from $575 from the Yankees. Would that be the most Angel thing to do? Because we've heard from Gubazon and a couple others that they really like Soto. What would that tell the Angel fans if the Angels, let's just say, outbid the Yankees and went 600 or 650 and got Soto, but they didn't go that high for Ohtani?
I don't know. I mean, in a mythical world where something happens, I mean, I think it'd be pretty ironic. But I think the fact that they got Jorge Soler by default takes him out of the Soto sweepstakes. But it would definitely be an FU to Ohtani, right?
Yeah, and it would be kind of to the fans too, because I mean, we knew they weren't all in on Ohtani for whatever reason. But
no. At least Artie's starting to talk a little bit about that. So my hope is that maybe in the next couple of years we might actually get an answer as to what happened.
Yeah.
That's one thing. At least he is talking to people this offseason.
I think Angel fans, if the media is true and we have the right people speaking, I think ESPN, if they're still around, will make a 30 for 30 once Trout's career's over because they'll want to crap on us. And they'll get in depth. They'll have their insiders tell the complete story of the Artie Moreno debacle. I think we'll have to either wait till Trout's career's over or Artie passes to get one of those 30 for 30s.
I wish they would have done like a 30 for 30 on like Artie Moreno himself.
That would be amazing.
Yeah,
I,
because it'd be really, really interesting to just hear about like the toxic work environment, to hear about, this guy not being supportive, about the mistreatment of minor leaguers, draining the funds of the minor league baseball for years, the lack of health care that they provide in terms of money.
Mhm.
If any of that stuff would ever come out, it would be crazy. But it's out there for any of the beat writers that might be writing. Start diving in. I promise those weren't empty words. I will leave it at that.
There you
Um,
go.
but yeah, overall, so far, a really good offseason. I like where we are right now. Obviously, I'm hoping that there are more moves around the corner, but I'm just hoping that we have a little bit more to talk about. But I love where we are right now.
Yeah, I think no matter what fans out there think, we'll be here to cover the Angels good and bad, and we're gonna be here for every move. So like if they continue to make these depth moves, then so be it. But if they add a couple players as splash, they've got. I mean, last year was a year that if they had done a right off season and not focused so much on Otani to start it and just already realized he was going to be gone, I think last year could have been different. But I think this year, you're a year removed from that. You've got to turn the page. You got to move forward. And again, this is a division that is very winnable. You got your eyebrows raised at Texas because you don't think they're going to be a second year floundering team. Oakland's gonna, or whatever the hell they are gonna be, like they always are, pesky. Real good April, and then just go flatline the rest of the year. And then you got Seattle, who will either start really good or start really bad, and then vice versa towards the end of the season. And then Houston is slowly crumbling. That facade of being so good for
Absolutely.
so long is kind of falling apart. And this might be the year they don't do nothing in free agency, and they have to suffer. So again, I don't picture this Angels team winning the division by no stretch of the imagination. But like you
No.
said, stranger things have happened. And if they just contend, that's all we've been asking about for the last decade.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I just want to play some meaningful games in September.
Correct.
I want these young guys to know what it feels like. Sorry, we were talking about adding more depth, and I forgot that we got Scott Kingery from the Phillies, and he just agreed on a 1-year contract with the Angels, avoiding arbitration. So we totally forgot about that move.
Yeah. Decent move as well.
Yeah, more depth.
Yeah, just keep it coming. I like that because again, I mean, it felt like high school players, like you talked about earlier. Like, I
Yeah,
mean, towards August and September, I mean, the casual fan was like, "Who?" And then even us in September were like, "Who? Who's in the lineup? Who's that?"
yeah. Who's Jack Lopez? I mean, I don't even know who that is. But
Yeah.
see, it's funny because last year we felt like that about all these bullpen moves, right? It was like Zuniga, Soriano, who's this guy? Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
God, Hunter Strickland, not him again. Carson Fulmer, who's that? From the Pirates? You know what I mean? That's what it felt like. And last year, a lot of those guys got experience and got opportunities in the major leagues, and most of them did pretty decent. So some of those bargain dumpster bins, $5 Walmart DVD bin signings worked out. Maybe some of these will work out. And once again, now it goes back to being a more complete team.
Yeah, hopefully. And just got to hope that there is a rallying cry, something that
So
gets
you're
the
going to say Raleigh
guys.
Chris
No, yeah, you can
because
put him in
Raleigh,
the
right?
dugout. But no, we need something where these guys can, feed off each other. If it's a saying, if it's a handshake, if it's a gesture, who cares? At this point, I just want some team camaraderie. I want this team to be focused on winning and be a little, like the Dodgers had their little thing, like let's do something like that. Get something together to where you know, we can celebrate with like fan, because that was a good thing. I will say that about the Dodgers is, when they got hits and they were doing that thing, the fans were right on either side doing it back because they felt part of it, So that also encourages the fans to be more into it, and more intrigued and engaged. So we'll see what happens this upcoming season.
All right. Anything else, Todd?
That's it, man. I'm long-winded tonight, so I had to get in some points.
Yeah, no, we've been going for a while, but thank you guys so much for tuning in. On behalf of all of us here at Halos in the Infield, thank you guys for listening. Make sure to follow us on all of our social media. Thank you to our sponsors, Mazos, Calzones, the best calzones in town.
Absolutely.
714 tickets. Use code HIDDY at checkout for 10% off and 5% back for future purchases. They're already no fee prices. You don't have to toggle any kind of weird switch like you do on some of those other ticketing providers. Oh, just toggle this button and it shows you what the pricing is all in. You don't need that mucky shit. 714 Tickets does that for you. And then afterward, after the Angels or the Ducks lose, or whatever your other teams are, because they all lose eventually, head on over to Noble Ale Works, get some drinkity drinks, mention Halos in the Infield, and get drunkity drunk. Just drive responsibly. We
Uber,
don't have
baby.
we don't. They don't pay us to say that, Todd. Just because you said they use another company.
Use a ride share.
Yeah, use a ride share until you pay us. Then we will gladly say your name.
Insert ride share here.
Yeah, exactly. Hop, skip, and a jump or whatever it is. I think that's like a less popular one.
That's a good one.
Yeah, we'll give them a free promotion. That's fine.
All right, so for Todd Fox and the Lone Star Halo.
Viva Los Angelitos.